Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual breakfast sessions. I'm Larry Sashin. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to give the viewers just a peek behind the scenes of what the 1.5% see every day when they go to their private club. We have a great group assembled here, and why don't we introduce them first? Stephen, why don't you start?
Sure. My name is Stephen Yen. I'm the executive chef and food and beverage director at Liberty National Golf Club.
Thank you, Stephen. Hagen.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Hagen Freihoff. I'm the general manager and COO at the Huntington Crescent Club here on beautiful Long Island, Huntington. Pleasure being here today.
Thank you. And Charles.
I'm Charles Dorn, managing director of the Dorn Group. We have a consulting practice primarily in the private club industry and longtime former general manager.
Okay. So, Charles, why don't we start discussing? You know, people have no idea that it might be a little bit different in the back of the house of a private club and a restaurant. After all, they both serve food. So, Charles, can you describe to our viewers some of the differences that there might be between a private club operation and a general restaurant operation?
Sure. Well, let me start with two things. Excuse me. Number one, keep in mind that memberships at private clubs are like bell curves. And the fact is that at one end of the bell curve, you have a longtime member who might have been at the club for 40 or 50 years who does not want to see change, never wants to see change. Chef created a menu item 25 years ago. The chef's been gone for 20 years. He still wants that menu item exactly the same way. The fact that that chef is gone, the fact that it's out of style doesn't matter. In fact, he's the only one that eats it, doesn't matter. On the other end of the spectrum, we have somebody who's brand new to the club, who is 35 years old, who eats at all the best restaurants anywhere in the world, and he or she wants a food and beverage experience for themselves and their families at that level. And then you have everybody in the middle. And so if you take a simple item, and I know it's a long explanation, but if you take a simple item like a hamburger, the 80-year-old member wants the hamburger done the same way on a squishy white bun with a piece of tomato in February that has a white core. He doesn't care. He wants that white core. At the other end of the spectrum, the kids that come in don't eat hamburgers. They eat sliders. One of them's got to be Kobe beef on a brioche bun. One of them's got to be turkey, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the gamut. Those people are back on a daily basis often, or certainly on a weekly basis, and they have expectations that are totally different than people that go into restaurants. They're repetitive. They look at it as an extension of their homes. And yes, these people have written, large checks to get in the door, and there's an expectation that's different.
Thank you. Thank you. Hagen, you're the person that goes face to face with these people every day. How are you different than the regular restaurant owner?
Right. First and foremost, I would like to take a little bit the obstacle away of thinking that it's a different group of people, because they're honestly absolutely wonderful. And we are enjoying an amazing relationship. I would say we have a little unofficial rule of the 5% that we cannot please. Those are just there for entertainment purposes for us and to keep our senses sharp and continue challenging ourselves. But in general, Charles is absolutely right. I feel the key is flexibility, to be open at all times and pretty much be able to jump right, left, up, down, any direction, 360 degrees, in order to just capture the expectation of that one particular member. And we also, for setting the ground for today, refer to them as members instead of customers in the hotel restaurant world. It's a little transition that is there. That's basically the key, corresponding to them, having pretty much your sensors open to always understand. And look, they're all regulars. This is the big difference to hotels and restaurants as well. So we are not dealing with a clientele that potentially changes on a daily basis. We have the beautiful ability to build guest history or member history, meaning we get used to them, they get used to us, we understand exactly their needs. And then after a certain period of time, especially with the long-term members, you know exactly what their preferences are and you can cater exactly to that. So those waves are flattening more and more over time. And indeed, like Charles pointed out, the new members have an expectation that is definitely different, but it's exactly also the evolution of our business, which should excite us and which we're trying to somehow correspond and even anticipate on to be a step further than them with expectations and try to implement trends maybe before our competitors do.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Stephen, so you are both the executive chef and food and beverage director. So how do you garner this information, which will become your crystal ball in what you're going to do next?
Sure, I think data collection is huge. Back when I worked at Morimoto on the omakase team, we knew exactly what you ate every time you visited us, so you never had the same meal twice unless you requested that. And I think that's the easiest way to apply that in a club setting. When I first took this job, someone said, all right, you have 300 members. That means you have 300 regulars. Now you just need to learn what their likes and dislikes are. So, using Jonas, we can easily add notes into, let's say, Mr. Sashin loves a large cube of ice with his whiskey, or when he comes in, he wants a double transfusion to go as soon as he gets here. All those little things we can put into Jonas. Obviously, our servers, our bartenders, our floor managers will remember every single member and what they want. But let's say the one-offs where if my best bartender is off that day, I still have those notes in the computer. So when they pull up their account, they can see exactly what their likes and dislikes are. And I think that's really, really crucial to turning that member into that regular, just as you would as in a restaurant setting.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned Jonas. Explain what Jonas is.
So Jonas is just like Micros or Aloha, or now, in the civilian world, they use Toast. It's just a point of sale. It's a POS operating system. The reason most clubs use Jonas is because it's also tied into the golf shop as far as merchandise sales and rounds. It's just like any other POS software that will allow you to, data collect, make the point of sale. You'll have in a regular civilian lifestyle, you'll have something like a Vero where you can look at your trends of how many burgers you sold last week, or what was the weather correlating your lack of sales? Was it driving your great sales? So Jonas is just another software that we all use, and I feel like 90% of clubs out there use Jonas, mostly because of the golf side.
Okay. So if Fred was here right now, Fred would say you just opened the door to AI. And how is AI? How does it affect the club? How does it affect how you deal with people? How does it affect how you organize your kitchens?
Sure. I mean, I've used AI as soon as it was available. When ChatGPT came out, I was, signed up to be one of the beta guys. And I love it because we use it for, let's say we're doing a little member tournament and we got to come up with some fun, whimsical names for cocktails or dishes, or, let's say we're doing a carnival theme. So I'll type in carnival themed cocktails and it will spit out 20 responses. And I want more. So it's great because yes, you can grab everyone in your area and say, hey guys, let's think of some cocktail names. But it's also great to just have that spew out 200 and then just run down the list with everyone around you. Say, hey, what do you guys think about this list? Also, it's really, really good with flavor combinations, food pairings, wine pairings. It's really, it has all the information that is readily available to all of us, but just at the click of a button, you can just come up with a lot of results and then filter it on down.
So how about for the operational side, where you're actually doing replacing a person in the kitchen, replacing a person in the in the system, machines doing a person's job. Charles, do you have any information on that?
Well, there are certainly applications available for robotics. I would say that there's probably 1% of the clubs in the country that are playing around in robotics for a couple of reasons. First of all, members, as Hagen used the word earlier, members don't want to see robotics in their club. It's not in the front of the house. Members, we as a club industry put a lot of emphasis on member service and doing as Hagen mentioned, the attention to detail. The idea of putting robotics in is really going to happen very slowly. One thing about clubs, doesn't matter what the trend is in the world, we adapt to trends very slowly. The AI trend is different because AI is going to be integrated in everything we do. Stephen mentioned a number of things on the food and beverage side. Stephen also mentioned Jonas. There's a number of comparable products, Jonas and Cobalt and North Star, a number of them. They're all starting to integrate AI into their point of sale systems and into their data packages that we can use AI in the back of the house. But as far as robotics go, I just don't see it. Frankly, we don't do as much repetitive stuff. So, for example, if you look at a QSR restaurant, a fast food restaurant, you can use robotics to cook French fries because you're going through basket after basket after basket of French fries. We don't do that repetition on that regular basis. We might do it at lunchtime on a Saturday afternoon or at the pool on a Saturday, but it may not happen on Monday through Friday where we need that kind of volume. So until the point where robotics is where you can use a robot for multiple purposes trained well, I don't see it happening in private clubs. I don't see a robot waiter delivering food in clubs yet. It might happen at some point, but it would go against the basic premise of the member experience.
So you mean the fact that they're paying 4, 5, 6 figures a year to belong to a club, they want a personal touch.
They want a personal touch. They want to get to know their staff, and I think that Hagen and Stephen would, I'm sure, would agree with me. We hire for attitude, not for aptitude. Okay, because you get that wrong person leading a snack bar on a Saturday afternoon, it could be a disaster on 100 different levels. That person could offend 20 members, and then Hagen is fending them off for hours. And yeah, you can comp a ticket, but that doesn't mean anything because comping a ticket, the next day that person's back. If it's a Saturday afternoon in the pool in July, they're back on Sunday with their families and they're remembering. So again, hiring for attitude, not aptitude.
Okay, so obviously training in something like in a situation like this begins day one and it ends never. Hagen, what are you doing to make sure that your staff is up to snuff?
Yeah, a very good question. Quick statement on the artificial intelligence. Just one statement. I think at a private club in the classic formula, I almost feel without a negative touch that we are a generation or two behind movements of the actual world outside. And that is a positive thing. Look at dress code, look at cell phone policy. We are trying to almost upkeep certain values that have deteriorated over the years. And not everybody has to agree with that. But I think a club becomes a little bit of this sanctuary where we enjoy values that have unfortunately vanished outside. And that sums up this whole need. AI is an incredible resource, which we might eventually need, but currently we are still counting on our own senses to formulate letters to the membership or do anything. But it is fascinating what's going on. And I'm a little bit worried looking into the future that hopefully that replacement will never diminish our efforts in what we are doing. Now, to the last question, training is indeed probably the most important thing in our field of hospitality. There are different reasons for that. Once, what Charles just said, we need to be personable, personalized. We need to have an amazing, welcoming, say yes attitude at all times. But we are in the people business. People have the right to have a bad day. People have situations in their own personal life, and sometimes in a private club that becomes second. Our responsibility as leaders is to make that first. We talk a lot about the internal member, like in hotels that are operated in the right way, the internal customer, and those are our staff members. We are nothing without them. If I get compliments from the membership, which is always beautiful, my standard sentence is, I'm blessed with a good team. And that is not a response to come across a little bit snobby or anything. It's really reality, because without them, we can't do it. I could not be on this call because I know my team is out there doing exactly what they are supposed to do. So to sum the answer up is, we need to manage with understanding. We cannot manage with orders or kind of a dictatorship regime. Some business require that for some certain periods of time. Some situations require it, but overall you need to be a coach, promoter of good times. My philosophy is only happy people can create happiness. And that's exactly what it comes down to, like at the pool, like in all the different areas. Every little staff member is one essential piece in our big and larger clockwork. And training is essential to create that culture. And we need indeed standards. There's no doubt about it. I'm a huge fan of standards, but the personality and the extra step and the extra effort to meet an individual member's needs cannot be standardized. I don't believe in that in a second. It needs to be personality that kicks in, and a common culture that allows you to shoot into the same direction. So overall, all the members experience the same experience and at their club.
So, Stephen, how do you manage your kitchen in training, in working, and then you add 98-degree heat? How does that work out?
Sure. I think my method is to be a coach, not a cop. My whole thing is, when you're coming up as a sous chef and you ultimately become an executive chef, you really need to retrain how you feel and think of, yes, I can get in the game, meaning I can kick the cook off the grill and take over the grill myself. But what's that going to do? It's going to get us through service, but tomorrow he's still not going to be able to execute what we all need him to execute. Versus if I'm a great expo and I say, listen, don't look at the tickets, listen to my voice. You have, 4 steaks on the board, 3 burgers, 5 chickens. Just, I'll coach you through this. And then at the same time, teach him when we're, during downtime, teach him how to hit his temps properly, and then really stand next to him while he's doing it. But really don't pull him out of the weeds and do it yourself. Let him or her pull him or herself out of the weeds. Being a coach, not a cop, is a real mentality that I like to hold true to. Because at the end of the day, if you can't get a team to do what you need them to do, you're not a great leader, right? It's not a one-man show. I can't prep, I can't cook, I can't polish all the glasses by myself. I need a full team to be doing that. So it's ongoing, in the moment. And there's definitely times where I'm like, hey guys, real quick, get over here, teaching moment. This is how we pull the skin off a Dover sole. I know a lot of you guys are working salad station. You might not get to this till next year, but since we're doing it over here right now, you might as well bear witness. And then the next time I'm going to have you do it. I think that's a huge plus of just almost picturing where you, as a coach, you can't physically get on the court. You can't get in the game and play the game and shoot the 3-point for the win. Just really have that mentality where you need your players, whether they're starters, whether they're on the bench until the 4th quarter and now they're coming in fresh. You need them all to be able to really execute your vision. Being a coach, not a cop. But now going back to robotics and AI real quick, I just want to say we just purchased a robot ball picker for our driving range. And according to that company, we're one of the first in North America to actually pull the trigger and say, yes, we want that. And the reason we did that is because labor cost is through the roof across the world. And if we're taking our golf guys that could be easily doing the one-on-ones with the membership, even if they're just coming off the course and we're cleaning their clubs, talking to them, hey, how was, did you like the approach on 17 today? Were the greens rolling at a 12? That little bit of personality and personable action means so much more than putting one of our humans in a golf cart picking up golf balls in the range, right? We can have a robot do that, and not lose that one-on-one with what the member's looking for. And that was the main reason. It wasn't going to replace a human's job in the sense of, okay, now the membership's going to deal with the robot. Now the member is going to, they're still going to hit the range and hit their balls, warm up for their, or practice whatever they want to do. But at the same time, that robot picks up all the balls, GPS, it goes back, drops off all the balls, and then goes back out and picks up more balls. So it's never going to call out. It's never going to get tired. It recharges at night. It's going to do all the things that robots will do, but at the same time, it's not going to take away from that member experience. And if anything, it's going to allow us to have a better membership experience, because now, before, if it was really, really busy, we would have 2 to 3 guys out there to pick up the range and quick, in half an hour, they're done. They can stay where they need to be on the cart staging area or help out valet. A lot of the times we'll grab valet guys and say, hey, get out to the range. We need your help picking up the range. Whereas also we can have the golf guys walking up and down the range and saying, hey, we have that ability to upsell now. Like, oh, I noticed your transfusion is getting low. Do you want me to radio over to the bar and have another one sent out for you? There's abilities that are coming up that wouldn't have come up before, because we didn't have that golf attendant, walking up and down the range saying, oh, I noticed your glove is getting a little worn out. Would you like me to get another glove up here for you immediately? There's a lot of areas of activation that we can now do because of the robot that we just purchased. So it's not, a fear of change. It's adapting in the right areas, as a group, and, not replacing a server, not replacing a cook, but when we can, or I'm sure in the future, they'll have robots cleaning the golf carts at night, or, washing the floors, or, in a sense of hospitals use some robots to mop the floors at night. And I'm sure that could be something in the future, where when Liberty National first opened, there was 20 housekeepers. And if you can imagine the payroll on 20 housekeepers, when you only have 1 clubhouse and 3 villas, is extreme. Now we're down to 3 housekeepers. So I'm sure in the future, if there's some type of robot to wash all the windows, because we have a lot of windows, I'm sure that will be discussed, but until then, picking and choosing when to use a robot, I think is a human decision, of, I don't think we need to have a human out there picking up golf balls, and if we don't need to. But I do agree that we don't need to have a robot bartender or a robot server.
Okay, so we've identified the members as the elite. We identified your service as the elite. What about your staff? You mentioned you have to keep them happy. How do we do that?
Sure.
Hagen.
Okay.
You just touched my favorite subject, to be honest. Stephen, I agree 100% with everything you said. The key is what creates retention? What makes an employee stay in your operation? What many people out there might not know is that most of the clubs are an untipped environment. So, and that's the big elephant in the room when it comes to employee satisfaction. Because in many cases, and we are one of them, there's no secret, payroll is indeed the biggest expense in all of our operations, and everybody in this business can identify with that, private club or not. We have trouble competing with local bars, local restaurants, because staff definitely probably receives more money when they work elsewhere. So the value of being part of our team is somewhere else. So with other words, I'm trying with my management team to make the paycheck on Friday almost as unimportant as possible. I don't know if that makes any sense, but we are all here for the money, including management. That's why we work, hopefully. Some do it purely out of passion, but those people get rare. So the values need to be somewhere else. And this is indeed a cultural establishment. Training simply supports that. It's also leading by example. It's also fighting the battle with the boards of clubs to make sure that the staff is receiving the respect that they deserve, that they know they have backup by management, including the board. which is another subject we might want to touch on, the relationship board and management team, because you have two groups in charge who are coming out of very different backgrounds. One is members and one is staff, meaning ourselves. So we try to create a team spirit, a sense of responsibility, that even that sick call doesn't happen if the person is not really sick. So with other words, there's a responsibility to say, I can't take this day off and play hooky because I'm actually messing with the rest of my team who have to work harder and pick up my slack in the game. And it is possible. It does work. I measure that by the fact that we had quite a few employees here over time. The turnover is part of the game nowadays, that left us because there was something just 2-3 miles down the road that looked more appealing in regards to compensation, and figure it out after a month or two. They come back and say, I'm missing my team, I'm missing my enjoyment and satisfaction at the workplace, and they return. And I tell you, those returns usually never leave again. And I'm very proud to say that our turnover has reduced tremendously. And listen, we are all coming to work and have an incredible good time. There are good and bad days, of course, but this is also where a team needs to be in place in order to capture this. You know, if your goldfish has died last night and you don't want to be in front of a member smiling and giving good service, the team should be able to say, you know what, go and polish silver, stay in the back, we cover the front. And this is exactly the game that we are playing, a symphony of characters where our stars are in the front line and provide the smiles and the experience, and those stars can change on a daily basis.
So what is the difference financially between working in a restaurant and a restaurant in a club?
Yeah, I think, again, on the tip side, the best example is probably a bartender these days. Now, Huntington is a very big cluster of restaurants. It was described to me when I arrived here from Connecticut that it's the headquarter of dining on Long Island, because we have a very high concentration of restaurants here. Really excessive. So working here, the bartender doesn't get tipped. So you get the hourly rate, which might be correspondingly higher than what they pay outside. But a good bartender in a town like Huntington can leave easily with about $500 cash in their pocket after a good night on a weekend. And that's something we can simply not compare with. We are doing a bonus drive in the end of the year, which is a very promising and very standard thing to do. So members pitch in, there's a mandatory payment and then a volunteer addition to it. And we're very happy with that. And then we do a Christmas bonus. But I don't have to tell you, the generation today is more focused on what do I have today and tonight after my shift than what am I getting in December. So that time frame has changed a little bit. We are still going that way and it works. But again, the money cannot be the primary driver to be part of our team.
Okay, Charles.
So, Larry, let me jump in on that. I think Kristen mentioned number one, culture. Absolutely. It's a comfort that people have in working in the private club world. But there are some things he mentioned. First of all, we do tend to pay benefits almost across the board as a general statement. So it's not something that happens in the restaurant business. People are getting, once they're either full-time or even part-time employees, they get medical benefits, just as a general rule, not in every scenario. They often get some sort of long-term pension or 401k access. They get time off. Remember, the club business is extremely cyclical. The country club business runs the opposite of a school year. And so as a result,
you went with this one, not the other.
The 12 to 16 weeks of the summer, the clubs are open 5, 6, 7 days a week. The things are going crazy. But in other times of the year, they're much quieter, and we give people time off. We are more and more, and I know it sounds cliche, looking at work-life balance, and it is a little bit of a cliche phrase these days, but I have a lot of my clients that are actually hiring managers and staff today and promising them, with the exception of the dead of summer, that they're going to have a weekend off every single month. Again, recognizing that they have families and they have lives outside of the club. We do things in the club world that the restaurant world doesn't do on the same volume. We do holiday parties for the staff. We do summer parties for the staff. Hagen hires a group of H-2B or J-1 visa people for the summer. and throws a party for them in the middle of the summer, even though it's smack in the middle of the busy season. Or we send them through the Club Management Association, the local chapter, we send them to go see other clubs, hopefully inciting them to get interested in the club world and come back at another time. And then, as Hagen mentioned, we do bonuses. We do holiday bonuses, we do employment bonuses, we do end of the season bonuses. So we really, we frankly put our money where our mouth is in the industry. And is it expensive? Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter, unmute yourself. Peter, are you still there?
He is. He just muted himself a minute ago.
Peter, unmute. All right. I guess he's walked away.
No.
Are you there?
Yeah,
Peter.
I just couldn't. I have fat fingers.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So Peter, you've been quiet. You've been listening. You've been abnormal for you today. So I've heard a lot of things from the three gentlemen here that I hear you talk about all the time. How is your operation different than what they're talking about? And tell everybody who doesn't know who you are, what you do, who you are, and what you do.
Good morning, everybody. By the way, what I've learned so much this morning. I just rejoined my club in Scarsdale after a 10-year hiatus. So I'm really interested in this discussion today. My name is Peter Herrero. I'm the founder and president of New York Hospitality Group. We are a 92-year-old restaurant and banquet facility, a barbecue catering company, an off-premise catering company, and 4 semi-organic, high-touch cafes in hospitals. It's some of it, you'd be surprised, is different, but we have a lot more in common than we have that separates us. I'm impressed the way everyone's talking about AI, what you can do. I've never even thought of the golf range for AI, for a robot. That's phenomenal. We all fight the fight of income. Everybody can make an extra dollar down the street, and they leave us. But you're so on point when you're talking about culture. We're part of a family. We take care of each other. You know, we learn and cry and celebrate together. Very impressed, by the way, how well the panel has come out of COVID, because I know COVID devastated everyone. You know, we're a little different, that our customers feel like they come to a country club because this is their regular restaurant, but thank God they're not writing the 5 and 6 figure checks to join. But we're all going through the same stuff of staff. I wish I could do the short-term immigration hiring. I'm curious, how has that worked out for everyone?
H-2Bs and J-1s have been the godsend for the club industry, especially the country club business, because from approximately May 1st until October 1st, a little different in some clubs, clubs start to operate 6 and 7 days a week. And so the reality of hiring full-time staffers to work for those 3 or 4 months is just illogical. So the great thing about the H-2B program is that it's a 3-year visa in the country. And typically what you have is employees who go, frankly, the people in the Northeast will go to Florida for the other 6 months for the most part. And if you get them after they've done their first 6-month stint, for example, down in Florida, they start to understand the club business and have some experience under their belt in the club world. They very often, as Stephen mentioned, they could have worked with Jonas, which is a nice benefit. They're not inept on the POS system. But then also, if they have a good experience at the club, you've got them for 2 more seasons, and they know the club, they know the members, and very often, interestingly enough, when they come back to New York, they will have been in Florida in a club where some of the members are. So they end up literally working with a specific group of members for 3 years. The bad thing at the end of the 3 years, their visa's up. It can't be renewed without them going back to their home country. And it gets very cyclical. about what countries they come from. South Africa has always been a real strong suit for us. Sometimes they're out of Asia. It really just depends on where the world and the world politics. And no, I'm not going down that pipe right now.
Thank you.
Oh,
But anyways, it works out really well. J1s are a different visa. They actually can stay longer, and they actually get paid a flat rate that's defined by the government, and they tend to be hospitality students. That works out really well. The biggest issue, though, Peter, is housing. Most clubs have employee housing in some dormitory style, and if you don't have that, that's where the burden comes in.
Okay.
ah,
So, Peter, are you ready to start a club?
no, but I'm ready to go back on a committee or a board to help out my local club.
Of course, Peter, you've got the three of us really curious. Don't say it. What club you're a member of, because I really want to know.
We're very fortunate. We have a great local club. I have no problem saying it. It's a local club. And we've had a great general manager that I've known for another club, Scarsdale Golf Club.
Oh, I had a hunch you were going to say that. Bill is a great manager. Bill
Yes.
I know Bill extremely well, and you guys have a great product. We actually had a club managers dinner there a couple of months ago. Dick Vermeil, the old football coach, is now making wine in California, and we had a Dick Vermeil wine dinner, and we were blown away by the quality of food and beverage and service at your club. You have everything to be proud of. And when Bill talks about all the new members you've taken in the last few years and changed the dynamics, the demographics, it's really pretty spectacular what you guys have done.
Yeah, it's a great club. It's a local club. They don't try to be all things to all people, but they try to take care of all the members.
Okay.
Yeah, good guys.
All right.
I'm glad to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Charles and Diana, unmute yourself, Diana. Charles, you were just at a trade show yesterday.
We were.
What was new and exciting? And Diana, you please add to this. What was new and exciting in the club world that you saw yesterday?
Let Diana answer it.
Okay.
She has some exciting stuff going on.
Sorry, I'm really tired. I noticed that I love what Stephen said about the AI. Like they're utilizing staff where they should be and use the AI for things that you shouldn't be paying people for. And I like that because the club industry needs to keep that personal touch to everything. Yesterday, I noticed it was busier than most years at the vendor event on the culinary level. Like everyone was at the dinners. There was probably 14, 15 clubs cooking, and the meals were elevated to what I haven't seen before. So there's a lot more attention being paid to the culinary side of the club industry on a person level as well. And I noticed that a lot of GMs and that is paying more attention on the culinary level, which, for me, that's huge. And I was really proud of yesterday. It was like a really good event, and I think I see the transition with GMs starting to understand the importance of the culinary side of the industry becoming almost a balance between the golf and the cuisine. And I think that's going to keep going. And actually, I must mention that Stephen, who was just at the TPC, I've been watching his social media. It is like going out of the ballpark. Like, I'm super proud of Stephen and what he's bringing to the industry.
Diana, if I may quickly chime in on this, I think you are 100% right. Food and beverage becomes extremely important because, first of all, our world has changed around the world of culinary. Everybody is a food expert right now. I talk a lot about that. It's not the glass of Merlot or Chardonnay anymore. It's now about sustainability, about resources, about quality of food. Everybody's watching the Food Network. So our world has completely transitioned. I think the job of staff in our industry has changed tremendously over a couple of crises that we had to go through, not only in this country, but internationally, where pressure on a waiter became way higher than what it used to be. There's no more jazz trio every night that creates the environment. We need entertainers now. There's no more flower arrangement for $2,000, which I enjoyed at the Waldorf on a weekly basis. Now the waiter needs to be the flower that people look at. So appearance is important, entertainment value is important, food knowledge is of essence, and the same goes for the beverage side. So I agree 100%. And in a club world, we are very weather depending. Golf, tennis, most of our activities, and this is not for city clubs, this is more in the country club field. Very big difference between those two categories. What happens to your club when it's pouring, when it's snowing, when there's no tennis, no golf operation? Are we dormant? Are we having the staff stand by because we need to be available at all times for the one member who just says, you know what, I'm heading over to the club for lunch? So we need to basically be as independent of those factors as we can be. And that can only be by creating a destination food and beverage experience. It cannot be an amenity. And I think that's a very important direction for private clubs, because as an amenity, that's just your golfer who doesn't want to jump under the shower and go to town and find a parking spot and say, you know what, we're already here, let's just grab something to eat here. That group is definitely always present if there's golf, but what happens, how you make your operation so attractive that people leave their home, their favorite place in the world, and say, we're driving all the way to the club and we are looking forward to have the right service and food experience. And here it comes to your welcome level, to your personalized service style, and all of that we have discussed so far. Absolutely of essence. And before I forget, I wanted to just say that because we have a very good cooperation and collaboration between all the different clubs. It's a small network, so I want to join Charles on doing a shout out to Abby Turner, who is the catering director at Scarsdale Golf Club. Peter, please send best regards. For that level, you are in unbelievable hands over there. She's incredible, and I know your catering business is 100% covered.
Thank you very much. I will tell him.
Go back to Diana's comment. I'm sorry, I cut you off, Peter.
Okay. No problem.
I would like to say just one thing. In the 15 years I've been in this industry, I've spoken to a lot of owners of clubs where there's no board, owners.
Yeah.
The two most important people at a golf club is the executive chef and the grass superintendent. Everyone else is expendable. And, that says a lot. It's like the golf grass that people are playing on and the food that people are eating. And that is really true from my perspective.
I think we probably could spend hours discussing that point, and I'm not gonna go there. I'm not sure I agree with you, but I understand where you're coming from. But going back to your question that you asked, Larry, and you asked Diana and I about yesterday, Diana raises a really interesting point, and that is where food and beverage fits in private clubs. Not everybody, because of their age and abilities, plays golf anymore. It used to be that life revolved around the golf course, but everybody eats. And people have come to the understanding that the importance of where food and beverage is. And so whether it's a kid at a snack bar or mom and dad or someone on a date night coming on a Friday or Saturday night, the quality of food and beverage is there. Most people don't realize that if you look at the U.S. Culinary Olympic team that just was in Germany, of the 6 people, 5 of the 6 were club people. Okay.
Sure.
So the 6th one was the pastry chef from the Waldorf Astoria in Palm Desert. Every other person on that team representing the United States was a club person. And that trend has been continuing through the years. But the bottom line is, it goes to what we were talking about earlier about demographics. As clubs get younger and the younger people come into clubs, they have a different set of wants and needs. Hagen mentioned it, Stephen mentioned it as well. And they have expectations that the food they get at the club, it may not be as good as Le Bernadette on every single night for a variety of reasons. First of all, we're not going to play at that price point on a regular basis. But the reality is, if you're going to have a piece of fish, it's got to be a great piece of fish. So you need to be authentic. And probably the single most important thing, I think Stephen and Hagen, I hope, would agree with this, is that in the club world, more than anything else, you need to be consistent. They may not like what we do with regards to portion size. But if every single time you come, you get the same exact thing, they can't argue with you about it. They can say it's too small or too large, but they can't argue that Stephen's made a conscious decision to serve a 5-ounce piece of fish. Okay, it's a logical decision that works for the majority of the membership. Okay, somebody's going to want a 7-ounce, someone's going to want a 3-ounce. Not everybody's going to get what they want. On the flip side of it, if we can give it to them, we will. Somebody wants 3 ounces, and Stephen's sitting there with a whole side of tuna, and he got a 3-ounce portion. Who cares? Give it to him. We don't care. No big deal.
Thank you. Well, it's that time of the show where time is our enemy, and it's been great, and back to the theme of the virtual breakfast session, food service. It all came back to the food. And I thank you for doing my job for me and directing things to the food. So before we go, I'd like to go around the room and, leave that one little tidbit, that one thing that everyone should remember when they leave here. And Charles, why don't you start?
That's a tough question. Larry, you ask that question every single time the breakfast session, and I was so unready for this, but I will just simply say that recognizing that every member's got his or her wants and needs, and everything we can possibly do, whether it's a member or a guest, to give them what they want makes us better people in the hospitality industry.
Okay, thank you. Hagen.
Yeah, even tougher now to follow. First of all, quickly, thank you for this opportunity today. What a joy to talk to everybody and share a little bit of our little microcosmos of clubs. I think in closing, I will say the same like in opening. The key is that we are not over judging what is happening in a private club. I think it's just an extension of home. That's what we try to be. So I think the key is always to remain relatively low key with high standards. One does not exclude the other, and I think that's the beauty. But it's not something where anybody who feels like, oh, we cannot afford to join a club should be super jealous about. I really don't think so. We cater to everybody. We love to see the guests of members who are coming, who often don't have the opportunity to be a member on their own. And those are equally important, if not even more important sometimes, because if we treat the guest right, the member feels flattered. So I just want to take that idea a little bit away that it's a different group of clientele. By all means, it's not. And my message to everybody, I think the key is in food and beverage, and let's forget about clubs for a second. Let's go out there and enjoy it. Let's go out there and be, in our production part, innovative and different. One thing I'm allergic to is that it doesn't matter which restaurant you go to, the menus are identical. There is a copy-paste nowadays, and it comes down to the chef's analysis of a dish. There's not a single restaurant that doesn't have tuna tartare and octopus and Caesar salad. I think it's time again to be innovative and surprise our clientele. That you open a menu and say, my God, I want to try this. How can you put kumquats onto Brussels sprouts? And order it and get excited about it. This is what we are having as a new mission, to just be again the innovators, and provoke and create heat in something to really create excitement instead of just feeding people. And to the clientele out there, if you're just diners, continue to be respectful to the people who serve you. Give a little bit of hospitality back to the provider of hospitality, because I can just guarantee it will improve your experience and it will make it really a joy and make you very easily decide what your favorite restaurant out there might be.
Thank you. And what a segue to Stephen. Innovative.
Sure. I think coming from the restaurant world and having Liberty National as my first club to work at as executive chef, the standard is extremely high. I think instead of club world following the trends, there's no reason why we can't be setting the trends. And I think that challenge is for myself and every other chef in the club world, where we have the ability to say we can take the torch and lead the charge and start innovating and really have restaurants start copying us. As Charles said, you got 5 of the 6, representing being club chefs. there is no reason why we should be looking at social media or magazines to see what the world is doing. They should be looking at social media and magazines to see what we're doing. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of the new chefs that are joining Club World are up to. And I really, I'm excited to see what happens over the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you all for attending today. And panel, thank you for sharing with us. I have learned a lot and hope everybody else did. You know, it all boils down to the club world is hospitality with a capital H. And it is the somewhat hospitality that people of my age were used to. The high touch, high care, high attention type of hospitality that we're used to, that most restaurants can't afford to do right now, except for Peter's restaurants, which are all the same, all the same. But you know, I hope you come back in 2 weeks to see us again. We're going to have another interesting show. And once again, thank everybody for coming here. Fred, I hope you're having a good time in Spain. You missed something big. Well, only 2 more things to say, folks. Everybody, stay positive, test negative, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.